Jubril Karim is an energy research analyst at EcoBank, and he's sitting down in Victoria Island and is joining us via Skype for a few minutes conversation into this off-grid, mini-grid, captive power conversation. Good morning, Jubril. It's good to have you on the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. We've knocked ourselves around for decades as far as the on-grid is concerned, perhaps through constitutional, legal framework. Now it looks like we need to unbundle this nasty electricity problem we have on our hands via off-grid, on-grid. What's the latest in the industry as far as this is concerned?
Well, I think the whole discussion about off-grid or mini-grid and captive power is quite interesting, and it prefers a kind of a form of creative solution, but the way everyone is going by it needs to be much more defined than what we currently have. Because if you look at captive power, you are essentially saying you want to carve out small areas that you believe that you can independently provide electricity for via smaller generating power plants and simply distribute that power within that confine. But what we need to understand is that in the transaction of acquisition of distribution by the distribution companies and the generation companies, most of these areas are still under their jurisdiction. So what I believe that needs to be done is that the move of captive power needs to also be led by the distribution companies themselves. They have to be included in it. It's not something that the NELC or the Ministry of Power can simply be given a license without consideration for those who acquired assets based on distributing electricity to the said area. Say for instance, one of the most prime area for captive power in Lagos, which is under a co-distribution company, would be Victoria Island, because the area have about 70 to 90% commercial customers. So what you have in this kind of area is that you want to put a power plant somewhere close that can easily distribute to this entire area. But what that simply means is that once you carve out that area, you are taking out a very, very important customer base for a co-distribution. So whichever decision you decide to make in issuing a license for captive power for Victoria Island, for instance, it has to be a decision that benefits the co-distribution or even led by a co-distribution themselves. So this is the direction that I believe that this conversation should go, as against the government trying to be the front runner for the captive power initiative themselves. It has to be led by the distribution companies in collaboration with the generation companies, because to be sincere, all these very, very juicy areas were all part of what makes up the assets that they bidded for.
Well, Jubril, that's a very important story, and we've heard this over and over again, a bit of rustling, feather rustlings, discomfort. If we take the co-distribution power company and this captive area, Victoria Island, where your office is located, that's the juiciest part of Victoria Island, downtown Lagos, if you want to put it that way. And that's where the big banks are, folks like EcoBank and the rest. So that's where the number of MTN headquarters is there, Glow is there, all the big telcos are within that area. So this is a problem about who really owns that area. If you want to cap that out, what's called the captive power, how do we resolve this? Do you think it's a legislative, regulatory issue? How do we get out of this problem very quickly? Because it looks like it's getting more complicated by the day.
Well, it is complicated because if you are carving out the area, first of all, the area is under the jurisdiction of a co-distribution. So whatever you are doing, you have to involve a co-distribution company. Number two, you are also carving out a customer base for all the generation companies who all contribute to the national grid. Because once you take this area off grid, what that simply means is that one of the areas that contributes a high level of revenue for the distribution companies that is then passed on to the generation company is also being affected. So you cannot independently say that in introducing captive power to any area, you only are going to involve the distribution company that is on that area is under their jurisdiction. You also have to involve the generation companies, because they also depend on that area. And most importantly, when those areas are kind of very important areas in terms of revenue generation, you will have objection from both the distribution companies and generation companies. So it's kind of a discussion that you cannot independently as a regulator or as the government just decide to make. You have to involve all the companies that these assets are currently benefiting.
How do you think this should go? Do you think this should be a joint venture? You're looking at some kind of a handshake, what you call a business partnership handshake kind of thing? Is that what you're recommending? For example, if we use the co-distribution, we're going to stick that there. Do you think with the mini grid or the captive power operator licensed independently and the co-distributor says the big brother, should they go, well, let's share this together in one form or the other? Because as a captive power producer, you need my network, my facility, my infrastructure to distribute what you are pushing out of your mini grid.
Well, I think one of the most ideal ways to do it would be for the discos themselves to lead the captive power initiative. But we all know the conditions.
No, when you say leading, and I'm going to respectfully, I'm going to interrupt there. Jubril, when you say lead by virtue of co-ownership, investing?
Yes, in form of investment into the captive power space themselves. But we all know that there has been a lot of challenges with the distribution companies right now. So investment into that space might not be forthcoming from them. But there are various ways in which you can mitigate all these objections from them. You can also make it that the license, since the area is under their jurisdiction, there is a fee that is being paid for whosoever you are then giving the captive power license to reflect revenue loss, or let me say margin loss, since that is revenue net all the costs that would have been net to all these distribution companies in this area. So there has to be an incentive for the distribution companies, and there is no way that is cast in stone that you can do this. There are various options that can be explored that will keep everybody satisfied. What will be a bad idea is legislating behind without the inclusion of objections or negotiation with the distribution companies and the generation companies. That would be a very, very bad idea.
Jubril, you and I are a little bit comfortable in Lagos, so to speak, quote and unquote. So let's get out of Lagos for once. Let's go to the rest of the country where perhaps these naughty issue don't exist, for example. Of course, Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, Ibadan also could have a bit of this run-ins between the discos on the ground and whatever. So let's get a bit about and see, how quickly do you think we can perhaps resolve that part of it in areas where you don't have these overlays and what have you, to get captive power, mini grid on the ground very quickly, bringing power to the people at the bottom of the pyramid?
Well, let's look at it this way. A huge percentage of the energy that is being generated per day in this country comes to feed all these areas that you have mentioned. So you have it going to Ikeja, Eco Distribution, Abuja, as well as Port Harcourt. So if you can successfully create a way in form of captive power that takes out every consumers from the national grid, what you simply have is you have enough power running through the grid to serve the area that you really want to protect. So in essence, it's not while looking out for the interest of all these rural areas, you are also doing something that will benefit in the sense that, to be sincere with you now, if we have sufficient power in the grid, it is more economical to direct to allow Eco Distribution or Ikeja or Abuja to take more from the grid than all these areas, because collection is low in all those areas. But as you take all those high demand area off the grid, what you have is more power available in the grid for all these to serve all these areas that you believe will be neglected once the captive power initiative. So also you have so many drive for renewable energies, and I believe that rural areas, most especially rural off-grid areas, are places where you can actually implement renewable energy successfully. It's a form of captive power in itself, in the sense that you can have a solar farm that is only feeding about a combination of about, say, 10, 15 villages, and that solves a problem. These will even be new customers, areas that were not even connected before. So all these need to be thought of in a very creative way. There's no way cast in stone, like I said, to approach this. It just has to be done in a way that includes everyone in the industry. You cannot have politicians making decisions, making up reforms about the industry that does not include the input of experts as well as industry stakeholders about that kind of reform.
Okay. Jubril Karim, thank you very much. We appreciate putting some of this into context and perspectives for us as we move forward in trying to find solutions to Nigeria's troubled energy sector. Thank you very much, Jubril Karim, energy research analyst at EcoBank Group in Victoria Island, talking to us via Skype.